G2 is by far the best team. Play so well together because they all know how to play the game correctly, and we're just a step behind.
I think Kikis is an upgrade in terms of everything, really.
Yeah, I really think Kikis is helping because he's a really positive guy and he's also good in game and he talks a lot in game. He always tries to cheer everyone up.
I think best player is Mitty.
That was sexy, combo meter is 100% right there. Temper Fate on 3 members plus his own jungler.
Champion Fur is really good as well.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure if you put Yellowstar with Sven and you put me with Reckless, the lane itself wouldn't change much.
The worst thing that can happen is a ties, so ties are okay, but loss what happened.
If we wanna get a second place, we should win G2.
Hello everyone from Berlin, Germany to wherever you are around the world. With just 5 series left to play here in week 9, it's all on the line in this last chance dance to climb in the standings. Everyone is super hyped to see where all of our teams are going to end up today, as they were enjoying the Berlin sun just a moment ago. And there's a breakfast banter on Facebook Live this morning with our casters, where you could ask them a lot of interesting questions, as well as the Unicorns of Love cosplayers from the fan club Love Hurts. They're always here and always cheering their team on. 9 weeks, 170 games, 3,927 kills, and nearly 376,000 minions slaughtered. 1 Urgot pick, and it all comes down to this. The final day of the European LCS Summer Split. I'm Evie Schoke Supporter, joined here at the analyst desk by Mitch Kreppel Voorspoels and Martin de Fischo Lunge. Whew, say something, 'cause I'm out of breath.
Do you have a personal fan club as well?
Yeah, but I used to have one on my stream, but I don't think that name's appropriate for.
Okay.
All
right, let's move on.
Moving on. With only 1 chance left for teams to gain points in the standings, here is all, or how all of it breaks down, rather. All of the playoff spots have been given away, but the teams can still fight for their seeding in those playoffs. And the bracket, as well as the teams that are locked in promotion tournament already, Origen and Roccat, are also fighting to get or 8th or 9th or 10th, which can be very important down the line.
Oh, definitely important. Obviously, promotion tournament coming next week. If you are last place, you already play on the Thursday. You play 1 BO5. If you lose that one, you are out. You can no longer requalify for LCS. So super important, obviously, for both teams. Yep. Still, I'm not expecting Roccat to suddenly pull a 2-0 victory against Giants, and that's why Origen should feel somewhat safe, but at least they gotta go for that win, see if they can move further up the standings.
Yep. We also have some possible tiebreakers today. H2K Fnatic for 3rd place. Vitality Schalke, obviously, if they tie in their first match, they play another match after to see who's in the safe zone. And Schalke and OG could also then play a tiebreaker to see who has that 8th spot, which is very important.
Yeah, and that all hinges on basically on the result of Schalke versus Vitality. So that will be definitely one of the matches to watch today.
I think it would be the match to watch, honestly. It's super exciting to see 2 teams fighting, where one of them will go down and play promotion tournament and one will get the safe spot. Normally it's Schalke who gets it, but I think Vitality, I think it's really hard to say who's going to win. I think it's a 50-50, honestly. Both teams have been struggling a lot, and I don't think any of the teams deserve specifically to end up above anyone else.
It's also one of those matches where usually when things go wrong, you go like, okay, next week, we'll go like, this is unlucky.
No next week.
But this is the first time where in a game, if things start going sour, that okay, if we lose this game, it's relegation time.
Yep.
And for a lot of players, that can mess with their head.
True. There will be no next time. And sadly, there will be no next World Championship, at least not in 2016 for Origen, as they have lost all of their championship points. 70 points. They did so well in spring, and it's all down the drain now for them.
Yeah, lost the bot lane, lost an AD carry this split, and now lost all the championship points. Everything has gone horribly wrong for Origen, honestly. And I guess the only highlight for them is if they can avoid getting 10th place.
Yeah, and for people watching this graphic here, what we have to point out, this is how the points would be divided if the split ends right now. Obviously, the points get awarded after playoffs, so things can change around. But it does look like if Fnatic does reasonably well in playoffs and G2 end up winning, that they're second in points.
Yeah.
And then the logical result be that Splyce then has to go into the regional qualifier.
Yeah, because they have 50 already, and they could get 50 if they get to the semifinals, which would mean that Splyce and Giants would have to go through the gauntlet. We'll see if that happens.
I mean, I think Splice and Giants are okay with that, honestly, even though they've been doing so well this split. Because right now, if you look at the Gauntlet setup, Splice would be the strongest team, judging right now. And they would also get like a lot of points, getting a top 4 spot that would be pretty far down the list.
Yeah, Splice would get a really good seeding in that Gauntlet. I think this is all speculative of how well they do in playoffs, but like under the assumption that they make it to the finals, which I think is honestly very realistic. They'll get a good seeding into the Gauntlet. They get so much information from all the teams that played before. The only caveat is then that they're the only European team that gets a seed 3 into Worlds, which makes me very sad. So I hope that somehow
Thanks, G2.
Splice either make it and win. Well, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, actually, we got that
it's
seed
true.
anyway.
But if Splice somehow win the split, then they get a preferential seed. Or if they somehow scrape by points, then at least they get a seed 2 into Worlds, which is much better because I think this team has potential.
Yeah, we can discuss a lot about that in the post-game lobby at the end of the day, but we'll see how the dust settles for today as the Giants take on Roccat to start things off in the European LCS arena. And then in the studio, Schalke will be jumping onto the Rift against Vitality. Obviously, we mentioned already, super important match. And we'll close things out with our match of the week, G2 versus Fnatic, which could be very important for first and third place.
Yeah, definitely. We expect obviously Giants to win and then suddenly tie Fnatic on points and then actually have more 2-0 victories, meaning Fnatic needs at least 1 point against G2 to lock third. And if they get 1 point, it means Splice can actually take first place. Then G2 will tie them in points, but Splice will have 10 2-0 victories.
So interesting.
There's so many things going on there.
That's all under the assumption that Splice wins their match 2-0.
Yeah.
Which we also expect, obviously. But yeah.
Yes,
But
of course.
Europe has never had any upsets. No.
No.
Well, Europe, I agree, have had upsets. Splice have not. Splice have actually been so solid and so consistent the last 5 weeks. If they suddenly do not get a 2-0, it's
You
their own
will
fault.
shave your head.
I will not shave my head. I'm not betting all that on Splice.
Okay, no direst moment for you. In any case, with the last player of the game point up for grabs today, we want you to weigh in. Tweet at LOL Esports with the hashtag EULCS and tell us who is your MVP of the summer split and why, guys.
I'm going to say, early on, I'm going to say Trick. Again, I think he's the best jungler we have in Europe, even in NA as well, just combine the both. He can battle with like Rain over there for like the best spot. I think Trick has been fantastic all split long. He's super important for G2 and everything they do. But I want to also look at a team like Splice. I mean, we need to find someone, you know, really standing out there. You can say, okay, this guy actually is a potential MVP as well.
Mickey?
I mean, Mickey definitely comes into that list, but I think for Splice, their strength has always been that like no guy truly stands out. But I think Mickey as a catalyst for Splice and some of the really key plays that he makes in the mid game is very important. But it's always different members for Splice jumping up. The one caveat there, like the Rainover as the only competitor for Trick, I think
Jungle spot.
Yeah, for jungler, I think Svenskuna is actually doing really well lately,
agree.
especially in his team fights going in and out, zigzagging there, and Trashy is like improving a lot as a European jungler, so it's getting closer. Playoffs will tell us a lot.
Playoffs will tell us a lot. Worlds will tell us a lot as well. But without further ado, we're going to take a dive into the first matches of the day, starting with Giants and Roccat in the arena. Giants still has a chance to making it to third place, and that would mean that they take on the Unicorns of Love, which I think some teams have said, well, the Unicorns of Love are always risky, but I think you still want to take that bet in terms of a first-round playoff game.
Definitely. I mean, again, if you're Giants for us right now, obviously, they play for seeding. I don't care too much about that specifically. In this week, I care about seeing a Giants team actually showing up big time before playoffs, so I can go into playoff and say, I trust in these guys to do well. After the 1-1 yesterday, I'm a little bit on the fence right now.
They're also playing against a loose cannon in Roccat, in the sense that Roccat have probably mentally given up, checked out, and they're going to play like super comfort picks. Might cheese a little bit, might just do like atypical game styles, you know, because they don't have to adhere to the pure macro sense and the whole like meta style anymore, right? Whereas Giants, going to playoffs, that's exactly what you want to practice. And like when pure meta, when pure like correct gameplay meets like so many variables, sometimes it just goes wrong.
Yeah, we see them here versus Schalke, of course. Dropped the game. Maxor said, we just want to avoid G2, but then they could get tricked because...
Yeah, you don't know where they're going to end, so it's hard to avoid G2. But I mean, avoiding Splice right now could also be a thing you should look for because they've been very, very good. And I don't think suddenly Splice is going to drop the ball the next 3 weeks in practice. We know they're going to scrim G2 almost all the time anyway, so both those teams are going to be really strong.
If anything, I think you want to face G2 because they seem a little bit more random in their approach to the game. They're a bit more like explosive rather than Splice. I feel Splice play like the correct way and they consistently will beat lower tier teams doing so. Whereas there's more variance in G2's play with like people trying to make a play, overextending, you know, trying to be the guy that carries the team. Sometimes like they just have really bad early games too.
It's all about getting third, so you face Unicorns of Love, which is probably the weakest of the playoff teams, and then get top 4, so you get a lot of points for a gauntlet. Like, that's what matters.
Yeah, and for Rockout, it's all about seeding in the promotion tournament. Of course, they need to move up in the standings if they want to avoid playing on day 1. Of course, getting a better kind of parkour there is better for them to stay in the LCS. We'll see what happens. But we're going to move over to the first match in the studio. Schalke and Vitality fighting for last-minute points and basically fighting to stay in the LCS. And those are always some... Oh, that was Dutch. Always some of the most exciting matchups for me in the year, because this is just straight up duel. Want to stay in the LCS?
This is like our version of the Bastard Bowl, you know? Nobody comes out alive, like 7th place teams. At least we have a team that can rival Liquid in its sense of like moniker
Always
that nobody
the same
wants.
place.
Always 7th place. Schalke and Elements. So if you're a betting man, I mean, sometimes you got to look at the history to predict the future. Schalke likely going to end up 7th.
I talked to NukeDuck just before we went live, and he told me that he basically said to Gilius in week 5, I'm going to relegate you. And Gilius was like, no way, you know, they're playing for playoffs and everything. And he just said, you know, today is where the prophecy comes true. NukeDuck, according to himself, is going to beat Schalke and put them down into relegation zone. I'm not so sure. I think it's a 50-50, honestly. Both teams look equally as good.
Yeah, and there was a
Or bad.
there was a beautiful exchange yesterday on Twitter where you lend a helping hand to Gilius and then gave him a big e-hug and wished him good luck.
I mean, like, so Gilius was basically complaining a lot about the system, right? About the tiebreaker system. But I am vehemently against that. I mean, if you want to complain about the system, you have an entire split to do so. If you want to blame the system for not making playoffs, right when you just fall out in 7th place, you should blame yourself. If you're not into playoffs in this European split, it's all your fault because the bottom of the pack was so inconsistent. If you just marginally played better, you would have been in playoffs. However, I completely understand his frustration. It is so disappointing to be this close to playoffs, then fall out, then look at 7th place, and maybe even risk of like next week you got to end up in relegation. And this is coming from somebody who spent too much of his time in relegation.
But like, you shouldn't have lost 13 games the last 5 weeks if you want to make playoffs. And then, first of all, never complain about teams in playoff not being strong enough because you were not strong enough yourself to get there in the first place.
Yeah, he was tweeting that Unicorns of Love were just gonna like insta lose. I'm like, well, if it's that easy to beat them, you know, perhaps you should have been a little bit better and made it into playoffs.
It's like when I watched the Euro Cup in Belgium, and that was like, Wales is not going to win anyway. Doesn't matter. We should have won against them. They're still salty. Vitality, this is who they're up against. Schalke 1-1 yesterday against G2. Hey, they got a win against G2.
Yep.
Albeit G2 maybe didn't put on their best performance, but...
No, game 2, I think it was mainly the draft. I really liked the way Vitality approached game 2, especially in a sense of what globals they brought to the exchange, to the party rather, and they had a lot of good just like CC connecting, you know, and then Fiora was always flanking Sven in these fights. It just all came together for Vitality in game 2, and I like that they had like a proactive composition, whereas like, I don't know what G2 was doing.
Story of the split for Vitality. Great moment, like, hey, you know, they can play League of Legends. And then 2 weeks in a row, it's just completely gone. They win one game again. Honestly, today's all that matters for Vitality. Show up today, knock out Splice. Schalke, I mean, not Splice, they're in top.
No, that would be hard. Not mincing words here today. Let's keep it up. I like it.
I'm just saying, like, this game is so important.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to
I think their globals could actually work against Schalke, because I feel if you like, I have this image in my head where NukeDuck pops Destiny and just goes to kill Gilius in the jungle. And
get the prophecy.
Get the prophecy, and the game is FF.
All right, I'm going to cut you guys off because the players are ready and we want to see some games. So we're going to send it inside and load up for the final clashes of the split and meet our casters. I'm excited.
Thank you very much, Shocks. I'm Trevor Quickshaw Henry. This is Andrew Vedius Day, the Welshman, who was happy they won their matchup against Belgium. And we're here to bring you the first series in the studio between Schalke, Nulfia and Vitality.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is the battle for 7th place. Both these teams are looking to secure themselves that safety spot and try to avoid that relegation.
Of course, if one team gets a clean 2-0 and 3 points, they lock 7th. They are safe. They can go on vacation until spring next year. If, however, the series is a draw, then that means we will have a tiebreaker game a little bit later today.
Right, more League of Legends.
More League of Legends, that's what we want. Players are ready for picks and bans. Let's take a closer look at the players who are starting on the left-hand side, the blue side of the stage today. It is Steve, Gilius, Fox, Mr. Ralls, Spratel, and their coach, Nif. And yeah, a lot to play for. As we've mentioned, This team, Schalke, replaced Elements, who have placed 7th place 3 splits in a row.
Oh, yeah. Well, hopefully they can look to continue that prophecy as they go up against Vitality, who are on the red side of the rift. With Kabashard in the top, Shook in the jungle, Nuke Duck in mid, Police on AD carry, his support Kasing, and their coach, Daddy Shawns.
Yeah, Daddy Shawns. Is this really going to be a thing we say
Apparently
every single time now?
Every single time. He's labeled as it now. He should get on the back of it, it should be Daddy.
He should have a like Best Daddy U or something like a cup. You know? But we're about to jump into picks and bans. Nuke Duck, the man on your screen right now, he played Twisted Fate yesterday and was against G2, if I recall correctly.
Oh, yeah.
And had a very good performance.
He certainly did.
Very aggressive, led the team, and it was a proactive level of play I've not experienced or seen from Vitality in a while.
It was nice to see, really, because Nuke Duck as a player, I feel, has been one of the constants for Vitality. His performance has been very solid throughout the split, and to be fair to him, the fact that he was able to utilize that Twisted Fate yesterday, setting up for the side lanes as much as he could, getting that early lead that enabled them to just punish a lot of the poor drafting decisions that we saw coming out from G2, enabled them to net themselves the win. And just to take a game off of G2 has to be a big confidence booster moving into today's games.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, we actually saw and heard from the players talking about the fact that they were looking forward, we're looking to the Schalke game, saying that now it's just playing for safety. Because it's been quite a disappointing split, I think, for both of these teams. And I'll add a little bit more to that later. Schalke right now, going to start off picks and bans over on the blue side. So Vedius, we're still in 6-14.
Yep.
We saw a couple of rises yesterday, actually. Schalke tried it and failed against Giants. What else are we expecting as we load up for the first round of bans?
Well, we have seen a lot of priority on Shen. We've also seen a lot of continued priority onto the Karma. So likely going to be contested picks, but I would be very surprised if we actually see them banned away because there aren't many answers, but in all honesty, teams just aren't picking the appropriate ones.
What did you make of the Cogmores and Tristan as we saw yesterday?
Now, I was very surprised by the amount of Trist that we actually saw. Forgiven had a fantastic game on it yesterday, and I think that it works very well in sieges, largely because we've been seeing a lot more 1-3-1s in the meta right now. He is very good when you pair him up with someone like a Braum, who's great at disengaging, can provide sufficient peel, and it just makes taking that, when you group up as 3, taking that tower much more of a threat when you also have 2 powerful side laners. So I like it, and the Cogmore, his mid-game spike with the Wit's End is absolutely ridiculous, and you cannot allow him to get to that point.
Yeah, and I think Fnatic used him quite well in terms of protecting the Cogmore. There's a number of teamfights where Reckless literally just became a turret.
Yep.
Just sat down and puke for the win, I believe, was the quote I heard a few times. In terms of this game, though, Kassadin, Irelia, Gragas, all very targeted bans towards Vitality. Elise, Nidalee, and the Tom Kench towards Schalke.
And the Malzahar is still left available. Likely going to be priority. Remember, this is 6.14. He has not received the nerfs yet. Still very powerful. Very few matchups that he does badly into. But TSM actually picked up a very good counter pick recently, which is the Zilean. Can match the wave clear, offers a really good ultimate so that when that single target gets bursted down, you can instantly revive. We haven't been seeing it much in Europe. Hopefully Vitality have adapted and we should see a Zilean or a Karma coming up against this Malzahar.
Yeah, Vitality is actually a team that has run Zilean many times in the past as well. So it is something that is part of their playbook. They have pulled out before 3 games this split with Nuke Duck. It's also Kasing's favorite champion. As an aside, he hovers it every single game. But in terms of something else that is available, Karma is something that we've seen a whole lot. And traditionally been very highly sought after. Has been first picked in first rotations many times.
She has a lot of flexibility, but it looks like Vitality, they're still sticking with the flexibility because the Trundle can be shifted into the support role if you so want to, but you can also keep him up in the top lane. He does very well into champions like the Shen that we were discussing earlier. Gnar is the typical go-to counter pick for that, and that it is something that Steve has regularly gone to. He's got a lot of games on that champion, so I wouldn't be surprised if Steve picks that up here as an answer to the Trundle.
It's his most played by a massive margin. Vedius 10 games out of the 34 that they've played this split. His next most played is Trundle at 5. So it is really a comfort pick there for Steve. But we need to see whether or not Kasing takes that Trundle. He's only actually got 1 game played on that support Trundle. Still a lot of options. Lucian, Karma locked in for Schalke. So still high priority. Made it to the second rotation for blue sides.
Now, you'd like to think that the Karma is guaranteed to go in support, but when I saw H2K bring out the Malzahar top lane, I'm never entirely convinced that the Karma will be going into that support position. So Schalke still have a lot of flexibility in their composition. The Mals would do very well if the Trundle was up in the top lane because of his relentless ability to push, and he is another good answer to Shen that we've been seeing a lot over in LCK too. So Schalke keeping their composition quite wide right now, but they do have quite good mid-game power naturally with the Lucian and the Karma. So good disengage, and what they're really lacking right now is a way to start these fights, which in all honesty from Vitality they're not lacking at all.
Not in the slightest, especially if Nuke locks in this Twisted Fate, I almost called it the Nuke I quite like this option. The Ash Arrows into a Hecarim follow-up, potentially with the Destiny from TF, it simplifies a lot of the decision-making process.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's like, so what do we do? Do you have ulti? Use it.
Yes,
Did it hit
precisely.
someone? Use another one. You know, it really just breaks down the game from being incredibly complex to just being find a target, kill him. And against a team like Schalke, who have not been the greatest at playing the map or, you know, playing the side lanes, the options to just punish somebody frequently, I think is a good sign.
And the great thing about the Twisted Fate Ashe combo is this engage could come from anywhere on the map. You could just be sitting in your lane, farming like nothing happened, and then all of a sudden you get hit in the face by an Ashe Arrow, an instant TF ult comes behind you, you have the TP from the Trundle too, and there's this instant collapse from the entire lineup of Vitality when you were just farming away in your lane. So it gives you a number of options, and this is one of the compositions, or this is the composition that Vitality used to dethrone the Kings yesterday. So by taking a game off them, they're basically saying this is a composition that we know works, we know that we can run it against strong teams, so let's try and punish Schalke with it and see if we can replicate yesterday's success.
All right, replicating yesterday's success in the fight for 7th place. That's what we're looking at. Schalke round out their team composition with a Lee Sin and a Shen. One of the many, many tweets from Gilius yesterday included a I should have played Shen with an expletive I'm not going to say on air. I quite like this. It does then answer where the Malzahar is going into that mid lane. Shen into most likely Trundle is what we're expecting. And the traditional Zillion hover. We see this every time. What do you make of Schalke's team comp now that you've seen it?
So they do have a pretty solid early game with the Lee Sin. Good pushing power from the Karma. Malzahar's early laning phase typically fairly weak. He can't do that much, but once he hits the level 7 mark, that's really when he can go to a side lane. He can be this constant pushing threat. And overall, it's a bit of a mix and match team because you have a lot of pick potential. You have you're naturally going for the 1-3-1. With the Karma, you have pretty decent disengage, and when you combine that with the Lee Sin too, you can quite comfortably set up for the 1-3-1, but the ability for Vitality to engage, especially after locking in this Alistar, I think is the big thing that worries me for Schalke, because Vitality, they also have the option of the 1-3-1, but their ability to play around things like the Dragon, like the Baron, is so much stronger. And if they feel that they are in a position to force a fight, they have so many options to do that.
As long as they connect, as long as they can, you know, commit to the thing. You see, this is where the Shen comes in a good way. If the Ashe Arrow comes out and it's a very long way away, Vitality aren't able to react quickly enough, that Stand United from Shen could be a game changer.
It could.
It could come in and turn some of those ganks around. So a lot of globals seems to be the pressure of the day. Players have got a few seconds left before they change their summoner spells. Not expecting more than just those 2 teleports.
Yeah, you could run the teleport on the Malzahar. Largely going for the Ghost, probably as an extra defensive summoner spell because he knows of the amount of engage potential on the side of Vitality. So he's saying, you know, I'm just going to play it safe. I'll mainly be used as wave clear and pushing power. And up against a Twisted Fate, he may struggle a little bit when they end up going in the 1-versus-1 on the side lane, just because it's very difficult to match the sort of pushing power that a Malzahar has. But I think that there's nothing too unconventional. No ignites coming out from either support, so they're playing very much towards that Peel style. We're going to get that exhaust. When that Hecarim comes in, when the Lee Sin comes in, we're going to shut you down so that you can't do too much damage to our backline.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how these teams play out the compositions. We do have a brief pause just as an update at the beginning of the games, just to try and mitigate some of the technical issues we had from yesterday. Our Wizards have found some workarounds. And just to remind you again, for Vitality and for Schalke, this is the battle for 7th. A draw will give us a tiebreaker at the end of Origin versus H2K, which we will be playing in this studio, and the teams will be then playing that later today. Or, if one of these squads gets a clean 2-0, they get themselves 7th, they get themselves that safe spot, a guaranteed spot in Spring Split 2017, and an extended break where they can try reset and reflect upon what has actually been a very disappointing split for both teams.
And if I was either one of these teams right now, I would want to end the season on a 2-0. End it on a high. Because you've had a rough season. You're now going to end in 7th place. Both these teams had promise of making it into playoffs. We thought, Vitality coming into, in spring, they were a super strong team that had, they finished top 3. That's where they would. They were a staple team that we expected them to be a powerhouse. And then they did not perform. They lost Tianen and things started to struggle. And for Schalke, they were on the uprise. They looked good.
Especially in the opening few weeks. This is a team that came out swinging and really impressed in the first 3 weeks of LCS. Ladies and gentlemen, jump onto Twitter. Tell us who you think will pick up the first blood in this best of 2. Hashtag S04 win or hashtag VIT win. It's a battle for 7th. It's the battle for safety. It's the battle for their LCS lives. We're loading up onto the Rift for the first game in our last day of the regular season.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Vitality versus Schalke.
I was a tad early on that one. Thanks, Betty.
It's all right, dude.
You got my back.
I got you, brother. Now then.
I really thought I timed it well. I really did.
It's okay. So, production here in the studio like to catch us off guard sometimes.
Yeah.
But
trolls.
Early game. The possibilities of a lane swap are relatively high for the side of Vitality, simply because the 2 versus 2 is a little bit rough. Ashe, Alistar, the all-in, very powerful once they hit the level 6, but before that, it's very rough. There's a lot of wave throw on the Karma. She's constantly going to be pushing in. She has the range advantage over the Alistar, and typically it's just a very rough lane, especially when you pair that with a Lucian, who's just going to be diving in and basically hitting you in the face as much as he can. So it's a bit of a rough 2 versus 2 for the bottom lane of Vitality, but it looks like for the time being that standard lanes are going to be what we get, which is in favor of Cabo because he can put a lot of pressure down onto the Shen and he can get a lot of free farm early game.
So in theory, Cabo should do well top and Ralz and Sprotle should do well bottom, at least for the opening few levels. So let's track whether or not the teams can pick up any sort of big advantage.
Because will be a farm fest.
Potentially, right? But depending on which lane can have a bigger advantage, it could be important, especially if Steve is unable to stand United away. Let's assume Cabo does well and gets ahead. That could be a way to shut down that global pressure. Early rush here from Police and Kasing trying to push the wave down as quickly as possible. And a good mantra Q there from Sprotle.
Yeah, this is pretty much what Sprottle's going to continue to do. Move up very aggressively in the lane. A level 1, Alistar is not going to be able to trade back. At level 2, he can be a little bit aggressive, but once he commits, he then has no way to get out. So that's typically what you're going to see. They're going to get pushed under their turret. They try to go for the early Shev, it didn't work out. And in the top lane, Cabochard on this Trundle. Early game, it depends on how well you can play around the Spirit's Refuge if you're the Shen, because he will just negate all basic attacks.
Yeah.
And as long as you can play around that as the Trundle, you should be fine. But then it's about playing around that ability.
Okay, so when do these junglers get involved? We know that a Hecarim is a pretty sort of like make or break champion, feast or famine. He either gets super far ahead or he doesn't offer a whole lot. Whereas Gilius on this Lee Sin, we know the viability. Lee Sin can do lots, especially in the early game.
Yeah.
Has a lot of utility in the mid to late game with that kick. But we, in theory, expect Gilius to have more of an impact early.
Well, you say that, but yesterday, Jankos brought out the Hecarim, and he was just constantly aggressive as we see a bit of aggression down the bottom lane.
Oh, a lot of trade. Kasing getting chunked down. Ralz hasn't eaten the cookie just yet. Luckily for Kasing, there is some regen within his kit once he decides to skill that Triumphant Roar. Not there yet. But again, this is what we're anticipating. The range support into melee support, bullying Kasing around. We need to see how much CS Police offers. And looking at the minimap, exactly as expected, Cabo is shoving Steve in. Kasing wants to challenge, but Gilius is going to smite away the Gromp.
So this was actually quite smart from Kasing. He was wary of the fact that a potential dive was coming in. Obviously, it's very early on, but because Police and Kasing had taken a lot of damage, he just wanted to get a bit of vision in his half of the jungle to say, okay, let's see if Gilius is looking for a very early dive. We know that Lee Sin has a lot of early game damage, and so we're just going to mitigate that. He does get spotted out. Gilius decides not to go for anything too aggressive. It's just going to steal away the camp, and because he gets spotted on that side of the map, Shook is doing exactly the same on the opposite half. So he's going to steal away Gilius' blue, and Kasing, again, being a bit aggressive where he can.
Yeah, but look at the CS differences here. Kasing's trying to trade, but his ADC, Police, 18 to 29. Gilius going to respond to the aggressive lane here. Cabo's very overextended. There's a flash. Early used flash forward from Gilius. Red buff, as well as the Tempest cripple. Looking for the Sonic Wave. The zigzag taunt flash. It was all too easy for Schalke.
That was really smart play from Gilius. He waited so long to force the flash out of Cabo, and even when he flashed out, he still did not throw out the Q. But now, Nukta getting collapsed on the mid lane.
Oh, this should be an easy kill. Sprothel and Rolls come up. Gold caught under the tower. Rolls is able to step back, but wasn't enough. Nukta goes down.
So the fact that the bottom lane was able to constantly apply pressure meant that there was no response from Kasing to help out his mid laner. Nuktuk was actually getting the push down to Fox because in these early levels, the Malzahar can't really put as much shoving power down as the Twisted Fate. And so Schalke punish it. They punish the overextension in top, they punish the overextension in mid, and they pick themselves up 2 very early kills.
This is exactly what Schalke need. If they get ahead of Vitality and can set up the side lanes to do well, Vitality are going to be hard pressed to find an opportunity to engage. If their opponents are ahead 1,300 gold already at the 5-minute mark, then how are you going to engage with a Hecarim Ashe and not just lose that fight? This is just Cabo overextended. And look at Shook. I mean, Shook was in the jungle, maybe trying to set up, I don't think a dive, that's risky, but unexpected pathing.
The thing is, if you're Vitality right now, and you should expect that Gilius is going to look for a gank early on. He's playing the Lee Sin, and the best lane for him to gank would be the top lane because Steve has the taunt, which is the most reliable CC out of all of the lanes very early on. So that would be the easiest lane to set up for a potential gank. And the fact that Cabo was that far pushed up without any vision is just a very risky thing to do. Yeah. Yes, your jungler is nearby, but you have to be able to say, sure, if I get ganked, you're going to get here in time. And if you just look at the minimap, there was no way he was going to get there in time. So just a bit of an oversight, perhaps a bit of overconfidence coming out from Cabo.
Yeah, beyond a shadow of a doubt. And Cabo, you know, one of the most lauded players in the spring split. The meta somewhat moved away from him in some ways earlier this split, but has not had the same level of impact, hasn't had the same value that we've seen throughout the year. And you know, an overstep like that, giving first blood to Gilius on Lee Sin, a champion that also, you know, likes to be ahead, is a very good start.
Yeah, the fact that he's gone for a very early Tiamat suggests that he's looking to snowball this. Something that I have seen a couple times from Lee Sin. So there was a Korean variation where some Lee Sins were actually going for Titanic Hydra into tank, so that you still were relevant. And you know, a lot of people say, oh, Lee Sin falls off in the late game. I'm not completely convinced of that, because if you do go for the Titanic Hydra build, you can actually output a decent amount of damage, you can provide a fair amount of utility, and you can set up for a lot of plays that a lot of people don't entirely expect.
I've actually been privy to one of the Lee Sin falls off late game debates off air. If you guys are on Facebook, check out the Facebook Live talk show we did earlier. I'd actually like to do a segment where we discuss this. You know, whether or not Lee Sin falls off, to define and debate different forms of engage. Because I quite like the pinball power that Lee Sin offers. Just quickly before we move on, Vitality in the head, in the lead in terms of the vote, 58%, not the most convincing. But they're down about 1,000 gold. Farming relatively well, though, despite giving up 2 early kills.
Yeah, so Vitality, they still have a pretty good scaling composition. Ashe will eventually outscale the Lucian. It's a tough one to say whether or not Twisted Fate would necessarily outscale a Malzahar, because they do both,
different things.
Yeah,
right?
they do very different things. They're not quite the same sort of champion. Because Malz is about getting on the front line, but look at Gilius, looking for a bit of an invade.
I think the fact that Nukeduck has got the Twisted Fate opens up more mid-game options in terms of side lanes.
Oh, definitely.
And I think that's something that Vitality can be good with. Hawkshot should spot Gilius, I believe. A couple of pings coming up from Vitality, and Gilius isn't done on the invade.
So this is really smart from Gilius. This was something we saw him do very early on, where he was stealing away the camps from Vitality's half of the jungle, because Spraddle and Rollos are constantly shoving in Police and Kasig, and he's doing it once again here. He's stealing away the blue because he knows if Shook comes around the corner, my bottom lane is going to get there so much faster than their bottom lane is, and this is allowing him to be as aggressive as he wants, and I think this very much fits his playstyle.
Definitely does. Need to see it can contribute to more of a lead. Cabo actually teleported to lane after giving up that death earlier, is even on CS because of it. Nukeduck has also returned to lane after giving up a kill. Also, even on CS. So this is a good sign for Vitality. Despite the fact they're down 1,000 gold, we're hitting 10 minutes. Their laners are not massively far behind. It's about 300 gold in the top lane in favor of Schalke. Thanks to Twisted Fate's passive, Nukeduck is actually ahead. 300 gold.
Twisted Fate.
Yeah,
Hoarding all the gold.
Yeah. What a cheater. Unfair battlegrounds. And even Police, who was struggling with CS, for the first 6 levels, now that Ash Arrow plus Alistair combo's there, has evened it out.
It's also because of the roam that happened early on.
Yeah.
Remember the Rise and Spiral did go to the mid lane, so that gave a small window for Vitality to close the gap. There is a big minion wave now moving towards Rallis, so there's still about a wave or 2 in favor of Rallis and Spraddle. But as you rightly said, you can see now Rallis and Spraddle, every time they get up to the tower, they are backing away. They're saying, okay, we are very aware of that level 6 all-in potential, especially when there's this Destiny to just chime in and help out.
And the potential of an onslaught of shadows that could also come from, half a screen away to a full screen away. So there's a lot of options. I want to see where Gilius goes with this item build. I'm very interested because earlier we talked about the champion of Hecarim being a sort of feast or famine type champion, but Gilius as a player is also that type. We'll expand on that in a second. Kasing, Unbreakable Will, is being used, a full channel on the culling. Ash Arrow comes down and actually tags Rolls. Oh, that was quite good. But I think very important, it's breathing room, right? It's windows of opportunity that now Vitality cannot use because both the ultimates have been blown.
Yep. Bit of a love tap even from Police. Is just going to shy away Rallis from killing his support. But I want to touch back on this items that you were mentioning earlier, Quickshot, because this is actually really interesting from Shook. Something that we've been seeing a lot from Hecarims recently is the instant rush Trinity Force. We saw it from Jankos, we've seen it from Move, where they just, as quickly as possible, try to get that Trinity Force item because it's such a big spike for the Hecarim that they will even just completely ignore their jungle item until come the 12 to 15 minute mark. And it looks like Shook, he's actually taking a different route where he's prioritizing being that tanky frontliner. And that to me suggests that he feels there's enough damage with Cabo, Nuke, and Police that he can just be this engager that is basically just there to soak up damage, provide utility, and allow the rest of his team to really be the main facilitators of turning the fight in their favor.
I quite like that thought process. Gilius, with the help of Spratle, he's going to scare Nukeduck from the mid lane. Shook and Cabo, they're going to go toe-to-toe with the Rift Herald, so this will be picked up by Cabo, further influencing the pressure he can have in the top lane. But look how much damage that tower's taken. We're 12 minutes in. Nukeduck is at risk of losing his outer turret. Fox, on the other hand, has barely been touched.
A lot of this has just come from the bottom and mid lane. It's the fact that we keep echoing it, the fact that Schalke has the stronger 2 versus 2. They're constantly shoving in Kasing and Police. Now Kasing...
That looked a little weird, the rubber banding.
It's allowing Sprawl to roam around the map as much as he wants. So he's pairing up with Gilius, and something that we've criticized Gilius a lot for in the past was the fact that he was invading and just getting caught out. He was giving away free kills. And this adaptation where he's moving with Spraddle means that doesn't happen as much.
Okay, look at all the vision Schalke have set up. I'm going to make a bold prediction here, Vedius. Dragon is the target, but maybe Schalke are not going to get a chance. Teleport from Cabo. Here comes Kasing. Gilius will get the stand united, and Fox is now the target. He's making his way out of dodge. The rest of Vitality, onslaught of shadows. Gilius is 150, but he gets away. This has become messy. Look at Police on the back line. Malefic Visions are tagging him down. The culling, not going to kill anybody. Nobody has died. Fox is running out of mana. He's got no summoners. He needs the speed boost from Spratle. Sprattle's still got mana to play with. Why did you Nethergraph? The sacrificial lamb. Vitality get their first kill and turn back to Dragon.
Fox went for the staring contest and lost at the very end right there. It was all a matter of Vitality knowing that they had the hard engage. They realized that their early game was being pushed around. Vitality said, we have had enough. Let's force a fight. We know we can win the 5 versus 5. They do it, they get the kill, and they get themselves the dragon. Look at this preemptive teleport coming out from Cabo. He knows that he can get the collapse down onto Fox. The fact that 2 of the tanky members take a brunt of the damage initially is great for Vitality. This instantly splits up Schalke, Fox and Rallis on the bottom half of the map, and Gilius now is forced away. Schalke is still trying to force an engage, but there's no frontline left available to you, so you're left to the rest of Vitality to clean up the fight. Fox, he tries to do what he can to get some kind of return, but it just isn't enough, and Vitality picked themselves up their first kill of the game.
All right, nicely done by Vitality. We cut to a live shot of Nukeduck. Got himself a kill. He was the one that secured it. And the Dragon for Vitality, but they might still fall behind a little bit more in gold. 3-man stack up top. Ash Arrow will manage to tag Spratel. Destiny's coming in. Vitality on. Done. Gold card onto Spratel. The tower still stands, and that is the power of Vitality's composition.
This was the engage we talked about, Quickshot, at the very start of the game. You can be engaged on from literally anywhere on the map because you have the global Ash Arrow, because you have the Destiny to join in these fights. It becomes so difficult for Schalke to just set up for these sieges if you are not prepared for that collapse.
It becomes incredibly unforgiving when they're not ready for it. Gilius wants to get some revenge, actually follows the Lee Sin Q in. The resonating strike. Culling will drop down Cabo, but Cabo's getting healed up from his subjugate. And the rest of Schalke trying to control the lanes. Look at Steve. He's pushing down in the bottom lane, has access to level 11. So got that second rank in Stand United, and that will be available in about 15 seconds.
So Steve moving to the bottom half of the map, punishing the fact that Cabo had already gone top. He didn't have his teleport available. Now Rollis pops the Ghost Blade.
Good damage onto Police. That tower's dropping low. If Schalke just put a breath of fresh air. Oh, Nukeduck's dead. Stacking the CC ever so slightly, but it doesn't matter. There's more than enough damage to pick it up.
Good collapse from Schalke to punish Nukeduck, who was not expecting Steve to come out from the bushes, but hey, he is a ninja. You should always be prepared for the unseen.
Look at all the vision. Vitality are so invested in the left-hand quadrant of Schalke's jungle by that blue buff. There was no vision to speak of. Teleport actually coming up to the top lane. Steve wants to jump on the tower. That may have been to save Mr. R's life. Shook had ghosted forward. We didn't catch the build-up for that, but opted not to go into the onslaught. All right, so Vedius. Schalke have got themselves a 3,000 gold lead. That is substantial, and it's because of those 3 towers. After this replay, tell me what you make of the current lead and where Schalke find themselves.
So, I mean, I don't even know what Nukeduck was doing there. He was walking through his jungle, and then he walked back towards Steve, who was spotted out on a minion wave. Bit of a weird decision, but nevertheless, free kill handed over to Schalke. But yes, this is something that we should go back to because Fox picked up the tower in the mid lane. He was, because of the support that he had from Spraddle, and because of the fact that Gilius rotated round, we saw that Nukeduck couldn't deal with the 3-man pressure, especially with Cabo and Shook prioritizing the Rift Tower. That resulted in them losing mids. Schalke had already taken that bot tier 1 down, so they could invest their bottom lane into the top half of the map to put pressure onto that tier 1. So they've been playing the map very well in terms of objectives, but the big thing for them is come these mid-game fights, when it comes to playing around Dragon and Baron, this was something we mentioned during Champion Select, Vitality just have so many options to force the fight if they so want to.
Yeah, but 58% of the fans at home who believe in Vitality have a question. Is Schalke being 1.5k up and all the towers are up a problem for Vitality?
No, not even remotely.
Not big enough of a lead for the team composition to overcome?
The thing is that Lucian is going to hit a big spike once he completes that Black Cleaver, but that's okay for Vitality because they have a number of ways to stall. Even though Lucian is going to be this big powerhouse, if Vitality play the way that they have before, where they just use all their globals to catch a single target out, then there's not going to be an opportunity for Schalke to properly use this mid-game spike that they have available.
Yeah, I distinctly remember the many games where Vitality had a good sort of 15 to 25 minute mark and then had no idea what to do after.
Yeah. And this was something we saw against G2 yesterday, where in Game 1 they had all these options, yet they didn't use them, and then Game 2 they suddenly flicked a switch and they were like, oh guys, we can start a fight whenever we want. And that's exactly what they did, so hopefully they can maintain that. They've done a good job of it so far, but will they keep up this pressure as Mal's is rotating down?
Yeah, here comes Fox. Steve is already going toe-to-toe with Cabo. Cabo's looking to run for his life. Shook is making a run from the river. Cabo will go down. Nethergrass locks him out, and very easy kill. It's Steve that gets it for Schalke.
I think that's actually alright giving the kill over to Steve, because the Shen, if he does get ahead in the 1 versus 1, he can be actually a big kill threat for Cabo, largely depending on how Cabo is further punished. He's sitting at 0 and 2 right now. He's already fallen behind in experience, and now Schalke picking up that kill are actually looking to take some pressure down onto this tier 2 in the bottom lane.
Schalke are playing the map significantly better than Vitality at this point. We're approaching 20 minutes. Inner Turret is potentially under pressure, but more importantly, I think Mountain Drake number 2 Schalke have to secure this one. You don't want to give over 2 Mountain Dragons to Vitality and give them the opportunity to either push towers or even Baron as this game plays out.
So Cabo is returning back to the top half of the map. He has his teleport available. I think this is all right because he can look to try and take that tier 1. Steve is going to answer though, so Vitality won't be able to pick up that extra tier 1 turret, but they are going to look to put more focus on this dragon. I think Schalke, they want to put a bigger fight for this one.
All right, we'll find out. Time's running out. The Dragon down 2,500. Here comes Gilius. Sonic Wave could land. Teleport being channeled by Cabo. They've stopped the Dragon. They've booted Steve away. The fight breaks out and Police is already dead. Fox takes him out. The Malefic Visions, they're spreading. That's a double kill. Onslaught of Shadows will at least allow Shook to escape. And the rest of Schalke, they challenged and won. There's pings on Baron, but the rest of the team, wow, they might be committing for this. They're making a play for Baron.
Oh, Spraddle though, he could get collapsed on by Nuketug right now.
Okay, that's an oopsie. Flash over the wall. Good interrupt. Follow-up flash from Nuketug. Gold card goes out. Oh, I thought Spraddle may have pulled some wizardry, and thanks to Spraddle getting caught, the rest of Schalke, they peel back for Dragon. I think that's the safer, smarter option.
Yeah, they wanted to potentially go for something a little bit riskier, but they are just going to backtrack over towards this Dragon, and what a great fight for Schalke. The big difference in this fight to the previous one is Schalke were much better in their setup. They were the ones to instigate. And Vitality are trying to secure themselves the Dragon. They think a steal is going to come in, but Gilius, fantastic kick onto Police, allows Fox to get the ultimate down, and they can quickly shut down one of the big damage dealers of Vitality. I criticized Schalke earlier on saying that they wouldn't be allowed to have this opportunity to force the mid-game fight, but I was definitely wrong in the sense that Schalke, they just saw the opportunity to punish Police, and they do just that.
Also, keep in mind, the reason that was possible, Vitality had committed themselves to a choke point.
Yes,
they had opted into the Dragon, which then allowed, I think Steve got a 3-man taunt, even though, yes, he was kicked away. The rest of Vitality still stayed perfectly lined up and just got locked down by a great Shadow Dash. Taking a look really quick at some of the itemization here. Still just the Tiamat as well as Cinderhulk for Gilius. Deadman's Plate picked up for Steve. There's a lot of physical damage actually coming up from Vitality. So I like this from Steve. He's going to be looking to lock down either Cabo or really Police in these team fights. And Vitality may get their hands on at least more damage onto the mid-outer turret. But still behind, still trailing. And it's Schalke who feel like they're in control of the game.
Yes, it definitely feels like they're playing the map much better right now. They took advantage of the fact that they had the strong laners early on. They picked themselves up a lot of early turrets, but Vitality...
Why are you here, Spraddle? The shields are massive. Police is already taken down. Fox came in from behind. The exhaust is just a tad late. They've traded support for ADC. Now Nuketug is running for his life. Got gold cards and Ghost will be up in a few seconds. Good interrupt by Kasing. There's no unbreakable will. Flashes out of the Call of the Void before the silence connects. Fox continues to move forward and Wildcards will tag him. They trade 1-for-1, but for support for ADC and potentially damage on tower, Schalke again come out ahead.
That was a really good flank from Fox, again shutting down Police and taking down one of the big damage dealers on the side of Vitality. Keeping this Ashe down is so integral to Schalke's success in these team fights. Shook was very aggressive onto the support and jungler of Schalke. They thought that they had caught them out of position, but it was in fact Schalke that were lying in wait, ready to turn this play around. Look at the positioning of the Malzahar. He is just ready to walk around, coming from the flank, because Vitality, they are just... There's nothing they can do. They get collapsed on from two sides. Vitality try to come in. There's no teleport on the Trundle. 5 versus 4. There is very little that Vitality can do to turn this fight so heavily in their favor.
Yeah, and such big shields. I mean, the Stand United from Shen, Safeguard from Lee Sin, into a Mantra E. Vitality needed to burn through 2 times Sprattle's HP and didn't have enough damage to burst him down twice.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the shields, because this is patch 6.14. This is where Lee Sin has actually had a bit of a buff to his shield. And Gilius has actually, he's maxing his shield second for any of you Lee Sin mains interested. This is something that a lot of Lee Sins have been doing.
What was the shield like? Was it like plus 20 or plus 30? I can't remember.
It's like early on. I know that the final shield has gone from 200 to 240 base.
Right.
So if you chuck in a death cap there, that's a big shield, man.
If you chuck in, sure, on Lee Sin, why not? Please don't do that, ever. It is a bad idea, and you should feel bad. 25 minutes coming up on game time. Vitality looking to jump onto Fox. Fox is going to go down. Everybody's on the Kill Fox party, and it'll open up the mid-outer tower. Vitality still got the tools. I mean, this is effectively a semi-global pick composition that they've put together, but what more can they take?
Well, right now they're posturing around the Baron. Shen does have his ultimate up. Should Vitality look to start this one, would be very risky. And it looks like that they're not going to go for it.
If they had got that second Mountain Dragon, I feel like there would have been a greater possibility.
Even then,
of
still
going for
very
Baron.
risky when there are 4 members of Schalke alive. That's a level 15 Shen. Rallis has got his Black Cleaver Ghostblade. You're just asking Schalke to say, hey, all right, remember that last Dragon fight where you all grouped up in a little choke point? Well, now Rallis is even stronger, and you're just asking him to do exactly what he did before. So I think they would have been very risky. I think Vitality were just saying, hey, want to come check the Baron? Do you want to come see what we're up to and then look for another pick? But it didn't quite work out. Schalke didn't take the bait.
No, not this time around. Nuketag's actually going to get his hands on this blue buff. I feel like for the first time in a while, as this is a replay of the pick onto Fox.
Oh, that was really good from Cabo because he used his pillar to actually break the passive of the Malzahar, which made it so much easier to then set up with the stun from Nukeduck as well as the ultimate from Police. So really good
Pretty
stuff.
straightforward, that one.
Really good. But I just thought the interaction was pretty cool when you use the pillar. You know, just using even non-damaging CC is enough to actually remove that from Malzahar's passive.
Yeah, it worked out in his favor. Making sure that they can lock him down. Got the tower as well. That was Vitality's second tower of the game. Considering how much pressure they've been under.
And taking it from Malz is pretty big as well, given his wave clear at this point in the game.
Yes, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Only the top outer tower remains for Schalke. And looking at itemization, Lichbane Hourglass completed, Deadman's Plate, plus the Titanic Hydra up in the top lane for Cabo, and the Hurricane Essence Reaver. So Vitality's team composition is now becoming nearly fully online. I mean, Trinity 4 second for Shook. I'm on the fence about that. Cinderhulk into Triforce, especially this late into the game.
So my issue with Trinity Force on junglers is it's a very expensive item put onto a position that doesn't get very much gold. So it takes you a while to get there, which is why some junglers try to rush it. But Kasing right now, just using his fancy feet to avoid all the damage from Schalke. So that is the culling gone from Rallis. Not the biggest ultimate, a relatively short cooldown.
Well, Dragon is alive, so if Vitality opt into a fight here,
this is great for Vitality because they want Schalke to be grouping up like this so that they can get the engage they want.
Destiny's already thrown. Nuketag ever closer. Gilius left alone in the pit. 1,500 on the Dragon. It's going down, secured by Schalke. The ensuing team fight. 3-man knockup on the Pulverize. Gilius is in trouble. He's looking for a target. Actually kicked Police away. Not going to be able to taxi out. They've traded jungler for jungler. Now Steve is diving forward. Police is alive though. He's got the Rangers focus and Schalke on the target. Volley comes down, continuing to throw out the damage with no threat on Police. He's going to be able to take out Schalke. Fox and Spratle, the only remaining members, but the Malefic Visions, it's bouncing. Police is going down, below 100 HP, managing to get killed eventually. The poison not spreading further, and on the back end, Schalke get themselves 2.
So the biggest difference in this fight to the one prior where Schalke came out on top was that Gilius failed his ultimate. This is one of the biggest high-risk, high-reward plays of Lee Sin, where if you get that kick, you win the team fight. If you fail it, then it can go horribly wrong. And the fact that Police was allowed to survive meant that Vitality could get the team fight win, and they might just get the Baron quick shot.
Starting to rush it down. Sprattle's going to try and interfere. The Mantra Q not going to land damage. Baron's going down. Sprattle is donated, and Shook secures Baron. And a bonus kill. Vitality plus 3 Clay plus Baron. They're in control.
Nay, Sprattle, thou shalt not have this Baron. I shall secure it. And now let's have a quick look back as to how this fight unfolded. Keep your eyes on Gilius. Kasing does a good job of zoning away, and then a great flash from Police to avoid that engage. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Police is able to get out of there, and then he's just constantly dealing damage on the backline. Really good headbutt Pulverize once again from Kasing. Really need to give this man props because not only did he initially zone away Schalke, but he then got the knockup to facilitate the other follow-up from Fox, and then Nukeduck clean up kills at the end. just overall very good fight from just so many small individual outplays that resulted in that win for Vitality.
Yeah, and allowing Vitality to completely take control of the game. With Baron buff on, I believe, 4 members of the 5, this is going to allow them to push down this wave and completely lock Schalke into defensive positions.
Yeah, 1-3-1 will now be the setup for Vitality. That Twisted Fate is massive, working towards a death cap 4th item. He is already pretty big, and this is just going to make things even worse. And look at that minion wave in the bottom lane.
That is gigantic. Destiny from Nukeduck. This will usher in 1, 2 cannon minions. Is that 3 cannon minions, I think? All Baron empowered. QSS is already picked up for Rals and for Police.
Ooh, very early Zhonya's.
Opts into the Zhonya's. I think a little bit afraid of that Nether Grasp from Fox. And the rest of Vitality moving forward. There are so many minions here. Tower's going to start getting taken down. That's the Maleficus Vision spreading. Kasing goes in, doesn't find a target.
Police!
Unbreakable Will's already used. Police, why are you there? He got found! Gilius kicks him forward. They've traded Jungler for ADC. Kasing gets a slowdown. This may interrupt. But that was a fantastic play that'll stall out the Baron buff.
These fights are just being completely determined by whether or not Gilius can get that Dragon's Rage off. This time, Police didn't have the flash, but Gilius didn't even need his flash because he was able to use the Insect to set up the play for his team. They shut down Police, one of the biggest damage dealers at this point in the game. And then with him gone, Schalke could just look to then clean up the fight. So again, keep your eyes on Gilius. Great Insect setup play. They get the lockdown onto Police, and then Kasing, he's still tagging at the turret. His ultimate's going to disappear. Vitality just are forced to disengage at this point.
Yeah, Police just simply not really respecting the ranges or the engage. He was nearly point blank on that tower, despite all of the threat and all of the pressure. We're 30 minutes into this game, and Vitality, despite having the lead, have just sort of bungled their Baron siege. And this is going to stall out the game for a few minutes longer. 1 minute 50 until Mountain. That will be the last regular Elemental Dragon, I think is the word I'm going to go with, before Elder spawns. And Baron will be up in about 3.5, 4 minutes time. So a few big objectives where actually the teams have opted into fights more often than not.
Yeah. I mean, Vitality, they have a great team fighting composition, but it's the fact that Schalke can match them because of this big mid-game spike that they've had. And now this Malzahar is really starting to get turned on, simply because he has the Andries Torment. Forgot the name of that for a second, but Cabochard now going in for a flank.
All right, let's take a look. Shook's all the way forward. That Trinity Force doing wonders, buddy. Spreading the Malefic Visions. Now it's on Kasing. Cabo gets tagged by Nethergrants, gets taunted by Shadow Dash. A gold card defensive from Nukeduck as the Ash Arrow does nothing to stop Schalke. A re-engage onto Gilius. Vitality fancy one. Sparkle goes down in the back line as Kasing. He will get dropped. The Visions should be spreading. Gilius under tower. Gets taken down. Steve not going to find a taunt. Police, you've shot the volley the wrong way around, friend. That's a shutdown kill to Nukeduck, and Vitality lose 4.
Vitality tried too hard to force a fight that was not in their favor. Schalke, with the superior positioning and the greater collapse, are able to come out ahead, and they may very well get themselves their first inhibitor of the game.
30 seconds before Nukeduck and Cabo are back alive. Shook's up in just a few, but the inhibitor is broken. Vitality's base is blown wide open. 28 kills by 32 minutes. These teams are fighting for a safe spot in the spring split, or a spot in the promotion tournament next week where they fight for their lives. There's a lot at stake here, and it's Schalke that now have the leads.
But Vitality, they still hold on to the gold lead. Even though it is small, it is still in their favor, and they have a composition that can still win this game. And as you can see, potential engage coming out, but no. Schalke, they're just going to disengage. Going to use that Destiny to quickly get to this Dragon and pick this one up for themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Schalke wants to contest. So Vitality will get their second Dragon of the game. That's the last Elemental. Next up is Elder. As you see the icon flick across. Double Mountain for Vitality, almost a Dugtrio. Schalke got themselves the Ocean and Mountain. Only got one for that. And Baron's up in 1.5. You have to think, whoever sets up and plays for that Baron is likely going to be in control of the game.
So
on this question.
this fight, Shook engages onto Gilius, right? This is not the target you want to be engaging on. Look at Fox, look at Rales, completely safe on the backline. Cabo decided not to go for a QSS. He ends up getting punished for it. The collapse from Fox was enough to shut down the big, beefy Trundle. And it was somewhat in part what I like to call the Jarvan effect, where the Jarvan, he flashes, he E's, he Qs, he ults, and he's like, guys, I'm engaged, but you've created such a big gap between you and your team that it becomes so difficult for the rest of your team to follow up. And now Nukeduck, he is starting to struggle.
Goldcard comes out, goes golden thanks to Hourglass. Stand United will be delivering Steve to the fight, and Nukeduck's already down. Steve will not be able to taunt up Kasing. Kasing's holding on to that unbreakable will. 5v4, 30 seconds to Baron, 50 seconds to Nukeduck respawn, and Schalke have evened out that gold lead.
Nukeduck, you cannot afford to be that overextended when you do not have this much control over the map. Your vision control is good, but the fact that Schalke can just so easily get that collapse down is such a big misplay from Nukeduck.
And Vedius, we are seeing the same problems. We're in week 9, and the mid to late game shot calling from Vitality is still not at a place where it's consistent. They're out of position. They're not on the same page. And this is something that has plagued Vitality all split long.
And as a team, this is the point where you need to be shaking off those issues. You know, you've had a good start to the game. You've been playing a lot of these fights well. You know the only way that Schalke can win these fights is if Gilius gets onto Police. That is the one deciding factor that we have seen time and time again that has shifted the fights in Police in Schalke's favor. And Vitality just haven't adhered to that as Gilius.
Gilius. A lot of damage coming down, but he's still pretty tanky. Teleports from both top laners coming in. Stand United's available. Vitality are in retreat. They don't want this fight.
Fox.
Here comes Camo. Fox is feared. Fox is down. He didn't get the Nethergloss. Vitality, they fancy their chances. Shook's running forward. Rale's left alone. Destiny delivers Nukeduck to Rale's waiting hands. That's a double for the Duck. Gilius is running for his life, looking to get targeted down. Steve's on the back line. Yes, you've taunted up, but it will not matter. Steve is tanky, got stats for days, but not against 4 Vitality members. Steve will go down, eventually shut down by Nukeduck. 3 members of Schalke, they're dead.
Nukeduck, I had a go at you only moments ago for being overextended, but you just quacked all over Schalke right there. Fantastic stun down onto Fox. That was everything that you needed to turn that fight in your favor.
When a spot in Spring is on the line, a face check from Gilius started off this play. Vitality get their second Baron of their game, and there's a replay.
So look at this, Gilius, he walks into the bush. The arrow from Police is not good because it hits onto Fox, it doesn't stun anyone. But now Fox, he feels confident. He oversteps, gets separated by the pillar from his team, and then the stun from Nukeduck just shuts him down. Sproddle, he's not even in this fight. Rales is also then cut off from his team. The destiny from Nukeduck seals the fate of Rales, and then it's just a matter of cleanup for the rest of Vitality. Steve takes a while to shut down. He does what he can, but it just isn't enough. And then Vitality transition this into the Baron, and now they have suddenly regained control of this game.
Yes, until Vitality make a mistake on the siege, and then they can no longer push. Now, they cannot afford to get caught out again. This game has been defined by carries being killed in inopportune places. Look at Police.
Fox?
Where is he and what is the threat? Fox forced to flash. Here comes Shook. Onslaught of Shadows is available, but Vitality do not pull the trigger. They deliver Destiny. Nukeduck comes in from behind. Goldcard onto Steve. Towers being focused by Shook. And the rest of Vitality, they're going to usher the minions into the inhibitor turret. Still down in towers. 4-5 at Vitality, peeling back to mid.
So that's actually a lot of globals used for the side of Vitality. Teleport unavailable for Cabo, the Destiny unavailable for Nukeduck, but given it's late into the game, the cooldown is going to be pretty quick, so they're just grouping up as mid and forcing this tower.
Steve's on the front line, Tower's already taken down. Vitality doing much better with a buff this time around. Deathcap, Lichbane, Hourglass completed for Nukeduck. He deconstructs those towers. There is no better phrase. Destiny's not up for another 30-odd seconds. So this will allow Vitality to group up and push the minions in the top lane.
So it looks like Cabo finally working towards that QSS. I feel like he should have put a bit more emphasis on it earlier on. But Gilius now in the 1v2.
Now, Gilius is going to kick back Cabo. really the greatest target. There's no damage here for either Vitality or Schalke. Most of them are moved away. The rest of Vitality, though, they're going to group up on the bottom in Hip Turret. They're looking to break open the base.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 members to 2.
Whoa.
Nukeduck is so good at taking these turrets. But now, the rest of Schalke, their focus is being split. You've got a 2-3 setup coming out from Vitality. Cabo doesn't have the teleport, so Shook is just hanging with him, and Nukeduck. Now, this is the 1-3-1 that we're so used to seeing.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a 2-1-2 for the time being. Nukeduck uses the Destiny just for vision. Base is opened up. Schalke have got no doors. The Ash Arrow connects on a Spratel. Kasing decides not to taxi forward. That was an opportunistic arrow, but it buys some time. Nukeduck is going to get haunted up under the tower. Doesn't really matter. Kasing on the front line. Shook with a devastating charge. Nether Grasp not going to get used yet. Shook defensively uses that onslaught. Baron will be timing out shortly, but Vitality, they've broken down the doors. That's important. Gold card into Gilius. Follow Police. Police is looking forward. Gets knocked up like a pinball. Gilius goes down. GA is going to bring him back to life, buying some additional time. Police goes forward. Look at Fox. Fox is down. Police still has HP to work with. Chasing down Steve. It's a double kill for Nukeduck. It's another kill for Shook. Vitality have got 3, and they've got 2 exposed inhibitors.
Vitality, they found the final fight that they needed. They have the damage, and they are looking to take game 1 of this best of 2.
The minions are conga lining their way in. Baron has just worn off, but it's a 5v2. The Nexus Tower is dropping so incredibly quickly. Vitality, it has been chaotic. It has been back and forth, but they are 1 foot closer to the safe spot and to spring 2017.
Congratulations, Vitality. But we cannot give them that much praise, because this was a very back and forth game, Quickshot. This was not a game where Vitality had full control throughout. There were throws from Vitality, there were throws from Schalke, and there were just so many misplays from either side that, in all honesty, that still could have gone either way.
The early game was defined by Schalke getting ahead on the towers. They pushed those lanes so incredibly well, Vitality didn't have an answer. But Vitality found a couple of kills. They kept themselves relevant. And then it was just a matter of which carry was killed first.
Yep.
Whether the carry was out of position or whether a team proactively forced an error.
Yep.
Either way, messy, but chaotic and exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely exciting. We saw a lot of crazy stuff happen. Nukeduck went absolutely crazy in that game. 13-4-6 was his final Twisted Fate score. We said yesterday that it was a champion that he made a lot of use of in the game against G2. And even though he was part of the slip-ups from the side of Vitality, he was also a lot of the reasons as to why they were able to get a lot of the kills that they did.
You can have a great debate between the Gilius versus Shook impact, because I think Gilius had a good number of kicks. He found targets.
Definitely, yeah.
But we didn't really feel, it wasn't like game-changing, right? It stalled things, it saved some time. Shook, the itemization, I liked some of the tankiness, but the Trinity Force he was too squishy on the front line too frequently.
It was an exciting game. We still have more games to come.
Absolutely.
And now Vitality, they want to look to try and close this series out.
They really, really do. They've got their first shot fired in that battle for 7th place over Schalke 04. Let's head over to the analyst desk to take a close look at just how they did it.
Dankeschön, Trevor. We have a lot to talk about. You guys got a lot of replays because there were some very interesting fights and one interesting throw. However, let's start at the beginning.
Many interesting throws.
Yeah.
Many not so interesting throws as well.
And one of those started in Picks and Bans. Malzahar open, not choosing to ban it from the side of Vitality. I mean, they won in the end, for sure.
Sure, yeah. I just think they made it much harder for themselves. I do not understand banning Tahm Kench and giving Malzahar first pick. Almost no matter what you're looking to get in the first rotation, all they got in the first rotation was a Trundle. Giving a Malzahar away by banning Tahm Kench. I don't like it, but at the same time, they clearly felt like they could play this pick composition against it, like Ash Volley to remove the passive and arrow him in the face. You know, I can see it.
Or Ash Arrow, the passive.
Yeah,
that's another one.
But like, the problem I have with this game is like they're playing a certain comp, and you think they're drafting for a certain comp, but then they get in the game and they don't play the comp. Like, they continuously, like, Cabochard is overextending without vision on the map. I think Vitality's first real fight was a team fight where they start dragging themselves, and then they kind of get wrecked by Schalke, so...
They had losing mid lane, losing bot lane, because they picked the Alistar. Vitality had losing bot lane with the Alistar, had losing mid lane with the TF against the Malzahar. I understand it seemed like they were like, okay, we're just gonna like set up plays on bot side, because we have double CC from support AD carry, TF porting in, we're just gonna like camp the bottom side of the map and then get an advantage. But before you can do that, you need level 6, and by the time you hit level 6, you already lost the tower. So it was really a big issue for Vitality in the start, and I feel like Schalke had this game in the bag.
Yeah.
Like, they were ready to win.
Yeah, we see it there. Vitality is only 3-13, one behind at 15 minutes. So Schalke, even according to the numbers, should have had it in the bag.
Schalke could have snowballed. I mean, there was a window of opportunity where Cabo's teleport was down, and literally the plays they could make. Lee Sin could group mid with Malzahar, walk bottom, dive 5v2, game over. Like Lee Sin could join mid with Malzahar, flash R, game over. Like Shen could ulti the Malzahar, Malzahar could flash ult
TF had no flash.
TF had no flash mid and was
Free
continuously
kill.
wave clear, game over. Instead, they just like messed around, did nothing for a while, got ahead anyways, and then threw the game.
Yeah,
So-
let's show it because
Yeah.
we have a bunch of replays. Let's get into that because I think it will show your points quite clearly as well. First up, this 2-0 at Dragon for Schalke initially.
Yeah, so pick composition from Vitality, starting Dragon and staying grouped, and then look at Steve jumping straight in there, 3-man taunt. But like, you play a pick composition where if you group 5 ever, especially against the Shen, like you will instantly lose the fight. Then Vitality also had their chance to win a fight because now Schalke is running just head first against Vitality.
Yeah, Schalke just diving in here. Steve doing quite some work, but this right here is so
Well played by Police.
Yeah.
Gotta give him that credit.
Police did well. I think the main topic for us is like Shook versus Gilius for me this series. Shook messed up a lot in his build official. I'll let you talk about this afterwards, but for me it felt like Shook had no impact in the fights. But that was still better than Gilius because for the majority of the fights he had negative impact in the fights. The amount of times he kicked the wrong target, tried to make the fancy hero play as opposed to taking it slow. Like as a unit that is dense, Schalke will win these fights. Just let Steve do the zoning, bring it in, and just take out the front line worst case and just kick somebody in. But don't go for the hero play where you want to swerve behind the enemy team and go for the pinball kick or the bowling, 5 members in once. Like it's too opportunistic because the cost of failure is too high.
Definitely so, and I feel like it's been Gilius' problem like all split long. He wants to make the big plays when he doesn't have to make the big plays, but the build from Shook here on Hecarim, first of all, when you're even in farm as a Hecarim versus Lee Sin, you're doing something really wrong. Like for the entire game, they were even in farm. Hecarim is a power farmer, he should get really far ahead of Lee Sin. Problem is he goes instant Cinderhulk, which is the worst you can do, and what all the junglers in like LPL have figured out is like, no. You just go like Sheen first item, while you sit on your normal like Hunter's Machete or Talisman, and you just power farm with Sheen, and then you get early Trinity Force, and then you go Cinderhawk, because then you have so much more power in the mid game when you get the spike from Trinity Force. Getting it at 25 minutes does almost nothing.
That's what Sean's explaining right now.
That is what Sean's is right now highlighting. Obviously, there was a lot of jungle bans, so I'm not sure if Shook wasn't 100% ready to play Hecarim, but his build was subpar, and that's why he didn't have any impact, because he couldn't even outfarm Lee Sin.
And then it all resulted into the next replay that we have, and like going into it, I want everybody to watch that this is a fight we have to highlight where Vitality, I think, have used all of their spells. The fight starts with the arrow hitting Malzahar passive, so arrow is completely wasted, and yet somehow Vitality win it, and one of the main reasons is how Schalke is brute forcing this as reactionary play when Karma isn't even there.
Yeah, and Steve came in very late with the TP as well, so your front line of Lucian, Malzahar, Lee Sin rushes forward with no tank, no support. And then obviously because there's no passive, because of the great setup from Police with the arrow where he removed the passive.
Oh yeah,
Smart player.
Right.
Malzahar overextends. Again, remember guys, Shen is behind him and Karma is way behind. And obviously Vitality turns it around, wins the fight, takes the Baron. So this was a game where we had so many team fights, and every time I felt like you could just pinpoint multiple mistakes from the losing team of the team fight. And then it turned, and then it turned, and now they got Baron, and they won the game.
Well, there was something else though.
Yeah, and for me, it's just like before we jump to the last replay, it's so symptomatic, especially for Schalke, that like and these other teams, I feel they don't take their compositions into account. Like once the late or the mid to late game starts, they just play panic mode. It's like, okay, team fight, let's fight our way out, full solo queue style. Fight is started, therefore we must be able to win it. Fox just keeps walking in and he gets its turn on. It's just so disappointing to see that they just don't take it slow, look at what's possible.
This game really reminded me of like Immortals versus TSM, if you guys watched it, where Immortals, basically what they do every game is they start 5-man team fighting. Doesn't matter composition, they just start running in, start 5-man team fighting. Both teams did the same here, and then you get these really inconsistent fights where then you win, then now you win, then you win, and it's really sloppy to look at, and it needs to be much better.
Well, in the end, Vitality won, and Nukeduck player of the game.
Yep.
I feel like I heard you guys questioning some of the moves during some of the game, but in the end, he
I mean,
was
half
player of the
our
game.
commentary when we're actually watching the game is basically
Your
doing,
melee range.
is doing player speak where we go like, oh, this guy is
Boosted, not boosted.
so good by the way. Oh, it's actually so bad by the way. But
And then
yeah.
we get the replay.
And then we get to replay. It's actually not that bad. But no, I think Mukta could have optimized a lot of his fights, but in a world where there was a lot of room for improvement,
I think he was great.
he was great.
I think he was great in this game. I think he actually solo carried Vitality in this game.
All right, interestingly. So, Vitality, 1-0 up. That means that they're currently in 7th place. We'll see what happens if there's a tie.
And the worst that can happen for them is a tiebreaker now. So this is a really good spot now for Vitality, where the worst that can happen is you get another game versus Schalke, and then you can try and beat them again.
Okay, let's check in with what happened over on EULCS1 in the arena, because Smitty J, he went to town, he was on Jax, and Giants stomped game 1 against Roccat. I mean, it wasn't back and forth, I gotta say. Roccat was even ahead in the early game.
Yeah, so Rocket got a good start with some early kills. This is the first blood coming in. They got another kill on top side as well, but then we get some big team fights. Giants 1-1 a Dragon, got another big team fight here, but it's actually a turnaround from Rocket. It was very back and forth. A lot of kills happening here. Rocket gets, an ace. Gets
Look
a
at that sexy
Baron.
Karma Shield and 4-man speed up.
But Crepo is not over yet, because now Giants want to win some team fights. Look at Smitty J in this fight here. Okay, follow Smitty J. TP's in.
I can't see him.
On
Your
the
pen
Jax.
is in the way.
He's right there. Right there with the GA. Jumps in. Boom. Stun on the 3 members. Kill one guy. Go for steelback. Doesn't care about the traps here. Another kill. Smitty J, man, going absolutely nuts. And then you get play of the game.
I think so, yeah.
I mean, yeah, look at that fight.
Well, Knight also did great.
Knight also did great. Maxwell actually also had a good game on Gragas. He really likes to play
Yeah,
it.
blah, blah, blah. Caster stuff, everyone did great, but one of them is the best.
I only highlighted 3 players right there. I just
There's
wanna
2 more.
keep going with the Holy Trinity, as always. No, actually, bot lane is still fine. I have to set it every time, otherwise...
I wonder if they feel terrible. I actually asked Max Lauren, they're fine with it, so you...
Of course they're fine with it. I'm praising half the team. They love it. But
It's like everyone always praises you on the caster team, and we just go, oh, whatever.
you guys love it too. I know you guys on Reddit talking about me.
Anyway, we're going to take a quick break before Game 2 between Schalke and Vitality. This is the fight to stay in the LCS, and it continues right after this.
Why are we still on it?
The fight breaks out and Police is already dead. Fox takes him out. The Malefic Visions, they're spreading. That's a double kill. He's got the Rangers focus and Schalke on the target. Volley comes down, continuing to throw out the damage with no threat on Police. He's going to be able to take out Schalke. Visions should be spreading. Gilius under tower. Gets taken down. Steve not going to find a taunt. Police, you've shot the volley the wrong way around, friend. That's a shutdown kill to Nuktak. Vitality are in retreat. They don't want this fight. Here comes Camo. Fox is speared. Fox is down. He didn't get the Nether God. Yeah, he's going to bring him back to life, buying some additional time. Police goes forward. Look at Fox. Fox is down. Police still has HP to work with. Chasing down Steve. It's a double kill for Nuktak. It's another kill for Shook. Vitality have got 3, and they've got 2 exposed to him.